Hi, David.
Can you
Welcome to
hear me?
Vonvo. My name is Alex, and here you're speaking with Ali as well. So it's nice to meet you. Thank you for coming to our site. And just really quickly, I just want to let you know that this video is being recorded. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So I guess to
Of
start
course,
off,
send me if you upload the video, send me a link so I can use that too.
okay, well, definitely. Yeah, we upload the videos to YouTube after the conversation has ended. So in the next day or two, you'll see. I'll send you a link, and you'll be able to give it to all your fans and whoever else wants to see it.
All right, good.
So I guess to start off, why don't you just give a brief description of yourself, and so for everyone who's listening, they can kind of get a better understanding of who you are and what you're all about.
Yes. Hi everyone. Who's ever out there listening and for people who can see the video afterwards, I'm David Hayibri from Israel. I live in a community in the Shimon, which is in northern Samaria, also known as the West Bank. And I write opinion pieces that appear on different websites and publications. Recently, I wrote a opinion piece about the harassment of journalists and bloggers in Egypt, and which I published on yourmiddleeast.com. I'm going to give a link to that on the chat section of this talk. So if anyone would like to read that and make a comment if they'd like, please do. And by the way, I see that there are a couple people here in the viewer section who are not on the video. If people would like to ask me any questions or comment on what I've said, please go ahead and write that in the text section.
Right, so thank you. And for the viewers, if you would like to join the conversation as well, not just in text, you can just click the Start Speaking button up top, and it will stream your camera, and you can come join the discussion with David, Ali, and myself, just so you all know. Okay, so I guess to start, Ali, do you have anything to say? You can give people
Sure.
a little background of yourself as well.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm Ali. I work at Vonvo.com. I'm a business and media student, and I've been to US for a long time. However, I'm originally from Iran. I'm very happy that I'm here today with David. It's my pleasure to talk to you. I have some questions. I read parts of your article. First of all, I wanted to know what do you think if uh, such limitations can affect the future of it. These limitations can affect the future of Egypt. Is that what you're asking? My opinion? Yes. What would be the effect that these limitations would create on the future of Egypt? Well, I think that what we're observing in Egypt is an uncertain situation that after the revolution that overthrew the Mubarak regime in Egypt and the general elections that were held and as I mentioned in my article, the referendum for the constitution in Egypt, that many people were hopeful that all of these motions were bringing Egypt closer to a democratic society as people in the Western world are accustomed to. And what I pointed out in the article, the harassment of bloggers, journalists, being arrested and detained and prosecuted for viewing their opinions, puts into question the sincerity of all of these changes in Egypt. So if this continues as we see now, there's a big question mark regarding where Egypt is going. Egypt is going towards a democratic type of society, or if Egypt simply exchange power. As I'm the moderator, I try to just ask questions mainly. However, I think that's right. I believe such limitations wouldn't be beneficial for the future of Egypt. Um, I have another question for you.
In terms of the unity of Egypt at the moment, you think this sort of oppression would harm the situation there? Or you think that as a revolutionary government, they need to make some people quiet for a while?
I'm not sure, again, as an observer from the outside, I'm not convinced that the majority of the government represented by the Muslim Brotherhood are truly a representation of the majority of the people in Egypt. I think that the Muslim Brotherhood surely were much better prepared to take part in general elections, and they took their infrastructure to their advantage and so were elected. And the society in Egypt really wasn't given time enough to organize itself to continue in a matter of liberalization in Egypt. So now that they're in power, Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood have the ability to crack down on their national opposition, and that could continue to delay the advancement of the democracy and the liberalization in Egypt.
I see. So, what do you think was the reason that Muslim Brotherhood could get the upper hand in elections, in the recent elections in Egypt?
But what was the advantage of the Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood?
What was the reason that they could win the election for what constitution or the presidential election? Mainly presidential election. We will go for the constitution later. What do you think were the main reasons that Muslim Brotherhood could win the election for presidential election?
If you're asking what was the reason that Morsi succeeded in winning the presidential elections, that was what you're asking?
Yes.
But the Egyptian society under the Mubarak regime was a totalitarian dictatorship which did not allow the organization of the political parties that opposed the regime. So there was really no ability for citizens to organize themselves into opposition parties that would be able to take part in the election. And when 2 years ago the government, our government, was overthrown, the only organization that had the network which existed in Egypt was the Muslim Brotherhood because of their religious operation that existed throughout the country. So it was much easier for them to prepare themselves for the general election, opposed to other smaller groups of secular individuals who really haven't had the time to organize themselves.
I see. And do you see any near future? Do you see any organization by opposition in a way that they can be efficient in front of state and out of the hand of people? It's a long story that needs a lot more analysis. But sometimes revolutions go to a different direction. As you know, even in France, the revolution that was for democracy, it didn't end up in democracy the first time. It's the revolution in France ended up in another dictatorship back then. It's happened several times, but at the end, it could succeed and reach the democracy that they have now. But sometimes revolution don't follow the direction that the main revolutionary want, and it is unfortunate. So, in terms of Syria that you talked, uh, do you see any uh, good alternative for Assad regime there at the moment? The kind of organized opposition there, or you think that the people who are acting as the or you think the people who are acting at the moment as opposition would be the people who make the same sort of regime in different opinions or different purposes?
I think that it's hard to tell at this point who will take who will follow through with leadership in Syria when this is all over. And we have seen in a few different places in the Middle East, in what is called the Arab Spring, that those who actually initiated the revolution and those who were actually active in the streets didn't become those who became the new leaders of those countries. In Syria, too, it seems early to determine who is going to take leadership. It's just hard to say.
I see.
It's very obvious that the people who are fighting for freedom in Syria are very motivated and very dedicated to overthrow the Assad regime. What is sure is that they are sick of Assad. That's pretty understandable. What will be after that is, I'd like to address a question here that Marian wrote, asking about an article that I've written in the past. Over the past 2 years, I think that I published 2 or 3 articles regarding Israel and Syria in this situation. When I've suggested that Israel should assist those who are opposing Assad and should build relationships with the new leadership that we've been discussing, trying to help empower responsible leadership in Syria. I think that in general, I think that would have been the right thing to do on a humanitarian side and also on a political, strategical side. I think it would have been wise for Israel to be building bonds with people who will be the new leadership in Syria. What I've seen over these months that I've published opinions on that issue is that the people of Syria are proud patriots, and they're not interested in receiving assistance from the outside, which is very honorable. I respect that. What I'm sorry to see is that the people of Syria are also very hateful toward Israel. And people on either side of the revolution in Syria, both on the Assad and the Assad side, have been pointing the finger at the other side, claiming that they are receiving assistance from Israel, which is not the fact. Israel is not involved in what's going on in Syria at all. But it's as if what they're saying is that whoever is being helped by Israel should be acknowledged by the people of Syria as bad guy. So, in retrospect, it seems that Israel, by not offering any aid to the people of Syria, is actually making a wise decision because the people of Syria are not interested in receiving any assistance from the people of Israel. And that's sad.
There has been some conversations recently about the involvement of Al Qaeda, or as it is divided in in the opposition, in the rebels of Syria. Uh, there have been different articles about it that because they have been very efficient fighters because they have some experiences from other countries. They have been able to come to Syria and they have done some missions in Syria. Doesn't it make you concerned or worried that such involvement of Al Qaeda or Al Qaeda can later, after Assad goes out of power, can harm the society of Syria or by some chances some sort of radical group can get the power in the Syria. Actually, I myself try not to use the word radical group because I believe they are not even Muslim. I believe Islam has some definition. If you fall out of it, you are not Muslim. Some people try to say radical, but I try to say some non-Muslims who try to claim Muslim, they are Muslim. But regardless of my definition, do you have any concern or worries that such sort of groups and their involvement in the current opposition in Syria can harm the future of Syria? Or do you think that after Assad goes out of power, these groups will leave Syria and will leave the people of Syria?
I think that there's a real concern, and it's a real concern that the fanatic fundamentalist groups like Al Qaeda could fill in the gap, the vacuum. There's no vacuum. Someone must fill it in. And I hear many people who are concerned around the world who see concerned with this region, and point out that fundamentalist Muslim radical movements are involved in what's going on in Syria and involved in the opposition to Assad. And I think that realistic people should realize that there is no vacuum. Someone is going to fill in. There's something going on there. There's something very terrible going on there. It's been going on for the past 2 years. The countries of the world, including the Arab League, including the Arab nations of the Middle East, have been standing back and waiting and watching what's going on in Syria and not really offering a hand to the majority of the people of Syria who are opposing the Assad regime. And now 2 years later, while all of these different countries, be it the Arab League, the United Nations, the United States, the European Union, Israel, everyone is standing back watching, and now all of a sudden people are saying, oh, this is terrible, the fundamentalist Muslim fanatics are getting involved there. Well, somebody's going to get involved. That's why I suggested from the start that Israel should have offered assistance. It would have been very nice if Europe or other countries offered assistance to people of Syria. And from where I stand, I see a great deal of hypocrisy. Hearing all of the talk from organizations that call themselves Human Rights Watch and Human Rights this and Human Rights that, who are so concerned with the situation of the Palestinians under Israel's control, but in comparison are literally silent to what's going on in Syria. So for me, that raises the question of what the true agenda of those organizations are. If they're not lending a hand to the people of Syria, then it seems that they're using people, the Palestinians, as a tool to bash Israel. And they don't really have a true agenda of caring for people.
So you think that half of the foreign country would help the resistance in Syria? In that case, don't you have any concern or worries that Syria may enter a war with the countries that try to get more involved with the resistance? Like if Israel helps the resistance in a wider scale, don't you think that Syria may react to it?
War is a tricky thing, and living next to a war is not a convenient place to be. I think all of the countries neighboring Syria are concerned with what's going on there, and that includes Turkey, Lebanon, and Israel. Are all concerned with what's going on in Syria and concerned that the fighting in Syria could be a bad influence to our own security. And those who are strategic thinkers and responsible for security in those countries need to weigh out the best decision. It is the best to ignore what's going on in Syria and hope for the best, or is the better decision to somehow get involved to help secure a positive outcome of this?
I see. And there was some analysis. There were some conversations that they were suggesting that at the moment that some Western countries or U.S. are trying to support the opposition by money or equipment or training or weapons because they could see the involvement of Al-Qaeda in opposition of Syria. They were kind of comparing the situation of the Syria with Afghanistan situation in 80s and the time that the U.S. was helping Taliban to fight against the Soviet Union. As you know, later on, that help turned against U.S. and kind of backfired. Don't you think that the same sort of thought, you know, for sure there are two parts in Syria. There are some parts which are people of Syria now, they're fighting against regime of Assad, but there are some involvements of some groups like Al-Qaeda. The same thing in Afghanistan at that time. There were lots of groups involved. Some of them were very moderate groups. Some of them were very radical groups like Taliban. Do you think that the same thing that happened about Afghanistan can happen in Syria by supporting the opposition?
I think that the Western involvement in the in Middle Eastern and Eastern countries has proven tragic time and time again. So I definitely think that the Western powers that do bounce around their weight in countries in this region should be more considerate, much more considerate of the trends and the needs in these local situations. I think that in every country that we discuss and investigate the Western involvement, even when the involvement was meant for good, the confusion and misunderstanding and the culture that's lost in translation has a very bad effect. Caroline, Maroline, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm reading your questions. Is it Marwan? I don't know. We think about the fact Israel conducting cross-border operations directed against Syria in relation with NATO Pentagon. Israel Special Forces now tracking Syria as chemical biological weapons for Sunday time. Marwan. Oh, thank you, Marwan. Thank you for the question. I think that Israel has a real concern regarding stock of chemical and biological weapons that exist in Syria. If they do exist in Syria, then Israel should be sure to know where they are, in whose hands they are, and how to make sure that they're not directed towards Israel. They shouldn't really exist at all. They shouldn't exist, and they shouldn't be used. We've seen in the past in the Iran and Iraq war that the chemical weapons were used against the civilian population, and in Kurdistan against civilian populations. We surely should not allow those means of destruction to people to be hurting the Israeli population. So if I have no information to show that Israel is conducting any cross-border operation in Syria. But if those weapons exist, I believe that Israel definitely should be conducting those operations in order to destroy those weapons. Marwan, thank you for the question. Listen, everyone, this was a great conversation. I enjoyed speaking with you. I see that there are a lot of viewers here on the sidebar, and I welcome you all. I've posted my Twitter user, which is my name, Amibri, and I invite you to interact with me on Twitter. And I will come back again for more sort of conversations. For now, I'm probably aiming to do this again on Sunday, somewhere around this time next week. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it again during this week. I have a very good week ahead. But I'm glad to speak with you again next week. Thank you all, and thank Ali and Alex for being here in this conversation.
You're very welcome, David. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Alex. Have a nice day.